everybody that will work for peaceful change and work to restore the greatness of this country, restore the Constitution. We have been blessed. We have lived in a country that has had more freedom and more prosperity than any other country in history. We have had a great time, but right now we live in a dangerous era because we're liable to use this, because we have failed to understand how free people produce, not government. Governments don't produce. All they can do is forcibly redistribute wealth, control and run people's lives. The purpose of government, as I said, should be to protect liberty. Once you have freedom, then it's our responsibility to work to improve our excellence and our virtue. That's what life should be all about. But when government takes over the role of excellence and virtue and economic security and wealth redistribution, they can't do that without undermining personal liberty, which destroys the whole system. So therefore, we have to understand, though, that this country has lived way beyond its means. It's like if an individual lived beyond his means, and then we woke up and the banker says, you know, you can't borrow any more money, you have to pay back. You live beneath your means and you have to get caught up. A country has to do the same thing. So that is what we're witnessing. We're seeing the country getting poorer, but we're pretending it's not really there. But the 75% of the American people who are worried are starting to recognize this. So when that happens, if we do the right thing, if we have a sound currency and free markets and essentially no taxes, and we have our freedom to go back to work, believe me, there wouldn't be these problems. They'd go away rather quickly. The debt can be eliminated. We go back to work. But we can't do that if we're pretending to be the policemen of the world and throwing away our money overseas and keep borrowing it and putting ourselves further in debt. It has to stop. The bleeding has to stop. And then we get back to sound financing of this government. So this is the opportunity that we have. And they would like to say, well, this is very strange and radical and extreme. But believe me, the extremists and the radicals have taken over our government, and we need to get them out of this control. But there's every reason to be optimistic, whether it's the problem of education, whether it's the problem of medical care. These problems can be solved, but the responsibility has to be on us. We have to have the responsibility. And so often, though, in these recent decades, we have allowed the government to become the parent. They make decisions for our kids on whether or not they can have an abortion, and whether or not they have to take shots, for immunizations, and on and on. So the government makes these decisions, and I resent that. I think it should be your decision on what you put into your hearts and your mind, what you do with your religious values and your intellectual values. At the same time, I think you should have total control of what you put into your bodies as well. It's the same for the principle. But today, because we have so many compassionate people in Washington, they come on and they override state laws which permit individuals to use marijuana for medical reasons if they're dying with AIDS or cancer, and they have all these problems, and they may well be getting help from marijuana, and the federal government comes in out of their great compassion and arresting these individuals, putting them in prison, and they've never committed a violent act. That needs to be reversed. We need to change it. The silliness of the drug war, back when they got rid of, made alcohol illegal, they were so much more aware of the Constitution, they actually amended the Constitution. You can't imagine amending the Constitution today for anything that they do. But this war on drugs has been a real disaster. It has led to the point where you're not even allowed to raise hemp. Industrial hemp, you're not allowed to raise it because they think it has a drug in it, which isn't even true. And hemp is a good product. And Canadians raise it. We buy products from the Canadians that is made out of hemp. This is the hysteria associated with it. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of $billions on the war on drugs, and it really hasn't solved any problem whatsoever. And for some reason, I think there are some who like the drug war to keep the prices up because a lot of people make a lot of money on this system. But in the same sense that they are going to tell us what to do and make all those choices and remove freedom of choice, in the positive sense of taking nutritional products and vitamins, there's a move on now for the drug companies to have total control of this. And not only the federal government and the FDA, but the WTO and world government wants to regulate nutritional products. This should be freedom of choice. We should be able to make up our own decisions on what we do with our bodies and what we want for health care. And reason to work very hard and have a very favorable outcome in the January primaries. Thank you very much.